Welcome to BTN News Kenya. Dear friends, whenever you are listening or watching from, it is such a wonderful moment again that we want to speak on a few political matters that are affecting this Kenya currently. I am Joseph Oko. Some people call me Mr. Dichotomous, and I love you calling me Dichotomous. So if you call me Dichotomous, you are so welcome. I want to speak on this particular matter, abductions. Why are leaders now like Justin Muturi, Rigathi Gachagua coming out to speak about abductions? Anyway, let us look at the genesis of these abductions. Abduction started way back six months ago after the civil disobedience was seen when the Gen Z started protesting, of course, on matters pertaining inflation that led to something that could be seen as a coup, as an attempted coup, because the parliament was overthrown, of course. And up to now, it has led to a lot of discussion, rampant discussion on social media and on the news. Now, Muturi. Why should Muturi, a government official, who was an attorney general, by the time abductions were being done 6 months ago, come out openly today and say, yes, my son was abducted, and I talked to Mr. President, and then he became released? I think it is something more than what the eyes can see. If we bring Muturi and the abductions and the president, Muturi wants to bring in the government to be held responsible for the abductions. Of course, abductions are being done on Kenya, not in Uganda or in any other country. And the government must have been aware, because government have intelligence and they consume intelligence report daily. Now, Muturi saying that he called the president and the president made a call somewhere for his son to be released is a tie that brings in the commander-in-chief to be the commander in abductions. And so he is corrupting this government and wants to bring the picture of political instability in the public. Recently, when the Speaker of the National Assembly had a funeral, Kimani Ichung'wah and of course Natembeya exchanged on this particular matter. People criticized Kimani Ichung'wah, but to my opinion, sometimes he was right, and perhaps he was also not right, because Kimani Ichung'wah, as the majority leader, only stood on defense of the government because, remember, the president, to some level, is a factor of national unity. And when we want to disobey him, because we want to say some truths which should also be said, of course, like the matter of abductions are very painful. But I don't want to talk much into that. What I want to relate to these abductions is that these abductions that are now being talked about now is more than what we can see by our naked eyes. Can we tie these abductions and the corruption that our president, of course, was stated as the second best in the whole world and number one in Africa in corruption? I think that is a very good post that no one could ever imagine he could find himself. I think we should give our president some good presents for that. So Ruto, now our president, His Excellency, being the second most corrupt, he has been there because of one, abductions, and two, government business, how the government operates. Of course, if you can remember, in this corruption, abductions being one of them, we have had various sagas. We have had Audible Oil saga, we have had poisonous flour, of course, that have aflatoxin. We had sugar, which had some poisons of mercury, and we had fake fertilizer recently. So we have had a lot of things. Let us look at the history of our president a bit before I say what I want to say. When he was first selected to be a minister for agriculture, he had some problems there with, of course, the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga. He was removed out of the office because of the maize saga. And he also became a rap mashamba, you know, grabbing land everywhere. Of course, it was alleged because it has not been confirmed in any court of law until today. But we know, as he was mentioned, on serious and capital corruption. But the problem is not even our leaders. The problem is we Kenyans. Before Ruto became the president, Kenyans came out and told Raila Odinga that tuachie huyo mkora wetu, leave us, our corrupt Ruto alone. If you have any matters with him, take him to court. So they nurtured this corruption since then until today, that our president is the second best corrupt person in the whole world and number one corrupt in Africa. Okay, now this brings us to something again. Why now is Ruto becoming the second best corrupt person in the world? There is this thing called the scramble for Africa, where China is interested in Africa, the West is interested in Africa, and right now Kenya is interested in leading Africa. Recently, in the recent past, we welcomed someone called Adani to manage our airports. His Excellency, the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, who is a candidate for the AUC chairmanship, mentioned that Adani only does not exist in Kenya, but have a lot of existence in various countries, which Adani had done a few developments there and a lot of contributions. Few days, a couple of weeks after his announcement, it came out that Adani was so corrupt, and it was after intervention of some people from the West. I hope you know. Now, this poses Raila to be a very corrupt person because he had backed Adani that they were not so corrupt as it was being said by Kenyans. Now, if Raila is tied with this corruption, again Ruto is also tied with this corruption, and yet they are in a fight to win the AUC chairmanship. This is simply to scare away African leaders from Raila and Ruto. And this was very evident by when you saw the inauguration process of the Ghanaian president. Ruto was so alone, deserted, lonely, and any term that you can use. So these corruptions, this abduction, whichever, anything that may cause political instability in Kenya today is only there to be posed so that Raila Amolo Odinga can be scared away, so that leaders from Africa could be scared away from Raila Amolo Odinga. And I remember it categorically that in Africa chairmanship, the West have had it, South Africans have had it, West African, Central Africa have produced leaders, and this time round it was time for East Africa to give out a leader. But recently, in early November, of course, in a summit in Addis Ababa, it was now agreed that it will not be out of economic blocks, but out of merit. Why should it be changed from economical block preference to merit? Is it because they want to block someone? Raila, to me, with his vast experience, sometimes becomes a threat not only to Kenyans, not only to Rigathi Gachagua, not only to his political rivals, but sometimes to the outside world, because of how he thinks that some matters should be done. I remember in his opening ceremony when he was being unleashed uh, as a candidate for this AUC chairmanship, Raila stated him. He called himself, he pronounced himself as Lion of Teranga and Simba. Then he said he's the king of the jungle. And you know, Africa is the mother of everything, is the mother of this world. The whole world is dependent on Africa. It is now that Africa is starting to depend on the world because of something we call world economical structures. I just want to speak on these economical structures so that we can tie it on these struggles that brings now abduction being more volumated right now, more pronounced right now, Ruto's corruption being so loud now, and not in the recent past. Now, this world economic structures poses Africa to be in two categories. The first category is the producer of cheap raw materials, and two, consumption of technology which is depleted, and of course, consumption of the finished products from the raw material that they exported. For instance, these economical structures make Africa to be left bottom to the bottom of the value chain in the market structure. For example, Africa gives out cheap raw materials, be it gold, be it uranium, be it crude oil, you can name it. But again, the same Africa purchases expensively the fuel, the pharmaceuticals which have been produced by the West. And now this Africa becomes a market, a basket for money, where people are lent and they get raw materials, cheap raw materials there, so they cannot allow someone who thinks like them, because Raila Odinga says that Africa is rich, and he warned Chinese that he called, in fact, Raila did mention China as the polar bear. And of course, he termed other Western countries the way he did. So this poses him as a threat that wants to lift Africa to the level where the rest of the world will now not abuse Africa, but depend and trade with Africa as the rest of the world do. Like, if I can remind you, Africa used to be the food basket for Europe. But as soon as the colonialists were being driven off and independence were being gained in Africa, like in 1955 in Rome, the Europeans said that they had a problem with the food security. And according to UNCTAD, right now, Africa, which less than 100 years ago used to be the food basket to the whole world, now is importing 85% of the food that they consume. So in 1955, when the Europeans sensed that they have food insecurity, they came out under CAP, which is capitalized agricultural production, where the US, where the Russia and their neighbors, Ukraine, are now the leading people in producing corn and oil and so on. So it became the reverse. Raila and the rest wants this Africa to go back to its position where they used to be the mother of life, mother of everything. We can still produce gold here, but why are Africa behind the way they do. So this scramble for the rare minerals, this scramble for market, this scramble for development brings this closer to, brings Africa closer to a new scramble for Africa. And I want to say that whatever happens is a hand of someone who wants a leader which they can manipulate. So because they know that Raila is tough and very smart in thinking, and they saw it when he was the prime minister and when they came into government with the NAC during Kibaki's time when people could just study free of charge. They know the capability of that young man, and so leaders are being paid everywhere. Remember, Atuoli mentioned that people are abducting themselves so that they can get paid. Who are these people abducting themselves? And who are these people paying them? It means someone's hand somewhere is there to post Kenya, that Kenya right now there is no peace, there is political instability, and there is civil disobedience. If my memory serves me right, Raila Odinga went to South Africa and he was asked a question which he never answered satisfactorily according to me, that you want to be the AUC chair. How will you assist Africa if you cannot assist your own country where abductions are rampant? The matter was abduction. So does it mean that these abductions are used as a weapon against Raila, not even the government, not even Ruto himself? And to make this matter weightier, a government official, Muturi, has to come out to speak. You know, if I come out and speak about abduction, it will be normal because abductions have been there, they have been rampant. But if a government official, a former attorney general, comes out to speak about abduction, it makes the matter so weightier. If Rigathi Gachagua, the truthful man, I don't know where his truth has gone, because he said, if my memory serves me right, that Ruto is the best president as compared to other presidents. When did Ruto start becoming the worst president of all? These are simply weapons used against someone. And I remember a few people vowing that Raila must fall in X and in the social media, which made Joho to come out to the general public and speak the way he did. So all these matters, abductions that are now rampant now, according to me, are only a weapon, but a weapon to scare other African leaders from subscribing to Raila's candidature on AUC post, on AUC chairmanship. That is the reason why people everywhere are coming out to state the matters abduction now, something which happened 6 months ago. I remember the government saying they don't know who are abducting people. I want to tie this to Atuoli's sentiments in Wetangula's funeral. Government say we don't know who is abducting. Atuoli say people are abducting themselves, and mention some organizations who are being used to compensate them. This is a clear indicator that however much abductions were real and happened, but the ones happening now sometimes does not have legal roots. That is my opinion. Number two, they bring the matter of abductions At the same time, they bring out the issue of gamer registration. It means let us stabilize them and stabilize our base so that it is seen that those people who joined you, the opposition which came into the government, failed to give the government the right advice, and therefore they failed. So that when you come to your senses, it is too late, Mr. Ruto, and we as the gamer community are going to kick you out. But anyway, if I can give you a short analysis before we come back to corruption and abductions, in the history of politics, however much the gamer, the way they call themselves, have numbers, but they have never won in any elections without the support of other Kenyans. Remember, the Gamers are number one in population, followed by the Luyas and then the Kalenjins, then the Luo as large tribes, that is on amount of population. In 2002, when Moi was being succeeded by Mwai Kibaki, the Gamers were supported by the whole of the nation. But in 2007, when there was something being termed as 41 against 1, the whole of Kenya uniting against one tribe that I don't want to mention, they could not succeed. So they had to rig the elections because the referee by then said, I don't know the winner. If the referee does not know who won, then what does that mean? You have the answer by yourself. Now, that was in 2002. In 2005, it was spiced up by the no and the yes referendum. And you saw when they were left alone, they could not manage to marshal up the whole of the country to support their bid on the yes, on the constitution that was proposed. In 2007, they were defeated. In 2010, again, a new proposal was made when the gamers were now on the no, and this other part was on the yes. They were defeated freely and fairly, maybe because it was not for the presidency, because they always do that thing the way they term it. And in 2013, when Uhuru and Ruto was coming into power, again, it was not clear. The matter went to Supreme Court, and their victory was upheld, although there were a lot of irregularities. Same to today. And yet, they have been there as the gamers, being again supported by the Kalenjins. What if the Kalenjins withdraw, and then the Kalenjins now say, we are also uniting as Nilots? And if Nilots unite, that is now Kalenjins and the Luos, the Highland Nilots, the River Lake Nilots, plus the rest, where will the gamer go? Anyway, Rigathi Gachagua said they had made some calculations on the table. We will see if 2027 comes, which devil will win, because Rigathi Gachagua is equally a demon, as was termed by Raila, that is not my word, as Ruto. This specifically moves us to a decision that the abductions right now, however painful we lost our Gen Zs, however painful we lost our brothers and sisters, but these abductions now were not necessarily to be mentioned, but they are being termed, they are being volumated, they are being echoed everywhere to depopularize the candidate for Africa AUC post the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga. Thank you for watching.